Welcome back to Next Shift. This is Rick Wagan. Suzuki does not suck. Today we have a special guest joining us. We're going to be talking about the Montreal Canadiens team and who we believe is going to make the squad. The Canadiens are in Tremblant this week, and there's a few remaining players on the roster. Only 23 can make it, so I'm inviting Stephen Cohen to join the call. So let's have Steve join. Hi, Stephen. I think you're on mute. All right, there you are. Hi, Stephen. How are you? Welcome to the show.
How are you, Rick?
Good. So thanks for joining this call, this meeting. Today, we'd like to talk about, what you think are the projected players for the Montreal Canadiens in the 24-25 season. As you know, we've had we lost a few players. There's a few players with a couple of injuries, and there's a few players fighting for the final spots. Would love your take on who you think is going to make it, where they're going to play, what lines they're going to play on. Would love to hear from you in terms of your perspective, and we can go back and forth and see if we agree.
All right. Well, firstly, I want to thank you for having me, and this is really exciting. And to be honest, I'm really excited about this upcoming season. I think the Canadiens, the leadership and the GM have done a really good job of assembling this young group of players. I think there's some exciting young players that are potentially going to make this team, and it's just super exciting. We've got some exciting defensemen. I think Kapanen Goulet is going to blossom. He's got an opportunity to become a number one defenseman. Lane Newton, right? If he's utilized right, he's going to add a spark offensively to the team. And then some really young forwards, Oliver Kapanen, he's been the surprise of camp, and I think he's been, just fantastic. Joshua Roy, I think he showed really signs of becoming that next level player last year at the end of the year. And he's continued that on in training camp. And I think those two players, and potentially this young kid, Alex Barré-Boulet, who knows if he makes the team and they give him a shot, he's a little spark plug. So those three players, and then of course, just Kirby Dach, coming back from injury. So I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on a lot of the things you said. Obviously, if you've been listening to some of my episodes, I'm a huge proponent of Lane Hutson. I've been watching him for 5-6 years. He's played with people I know, and I followed his career, and he's just blossoming. It looks like there's no level that he's not going to do well. So it's exciting to see him. And when it comes to, I agree with you totally. When it comes to Oliver Kapanen, I mean he's the biggest surprise to me. I mean, he's done well. He had a great world championship. He's been in the adult leagues out in Finland for the last couple of years. Canadiens have to make a decision on him, or he has to end up going to Sweden. So it's a big year for him. And then you have, like you said, Alex Barré-Boulet, who came over from Tampa Bay, who's only played a few games in the NHL, but it's a good opportunity for him to make it. He reminds me a lot like Raphael Harvey-Pinard type of player, and it could be interesting to go. I mean, as you said, and as I said, Kirby Dach was fighting for the 1A, center one last year and got injured early on. Would love your take. I mean, okay, so there's a lot of players you mentioned. In my opinion, I mean, with Laney injured, it opens up a spot for at least one of them. But you can't keep all of them, right? You can't keep Mailloux, you can't keep Hutson, you can't keep Emil Henneman and Kapanen and Alex Barré-Boulet. Probably 2 or 3 of those have to go. I mean, that's because you have Dvorak and you have Evans, who have professional contracts. Unless you trade them, you're going to lose them in waivers. So what do you think? Where do you think it's going to fall?
So let's go through the numbers, right? So they're probably going to keep 2 goalies. They're going to keep, I think, 8 defensemen, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Actually. Who do you think are the 2 goalies that we're gonna keep? I know
that's for me, it's quite obvious. So I don't think there's going to be a surprise there. I think Montembeault is going to be the number 1, and Primo is going to be the number 2. I think he's going to get a shot, right? And he's been up and down. I've been on his bandwagon. I mean, I remember him in the playoffs in the American Hockey League. A couple of years ago, he was fantastic. And he's had his up and downs. Last year, I was frustrated with him, but I think they're going to give him a shot. So
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
Makambo.
Dobish has outplayed him in the preseason. Dobish has looked really, really good. However, I agree with you. I think Primo, he doesn't have waivers. You can't send him. He has to stay up, or you lose him, or you have to trade him. So he's going to get his first shot. But Dobish looks good compared to him. I mean, between you and I mean, I was always a big fan of Primo. You probably know that, and I'm on the fence this year, just the way it's going. So he needs to step up, in my opinion. But I agree. Okay, so now we're back. You mentioned 8 defensemen. So the Canadians could go 8 or 7, right? If they go 8, I think there's only one cut to make with, the Angstroms and the Mailloux and the Hudsons remaining and the Barons. Those are kind of the borderline guys, I would assume. You have Jack Eye and you have Goulet and you have Savard and Matheson, who are pretty much locked in. So if you're thinking that way, and I left out Struble, who's had a great camp as well. There's 2 of those guys have to go, or one.
So I think it's going to be one.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be between Engstrom and Mailloux.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my personal opinion. I think everybody else, and maybe Barron. So maybe 2 spots are up between Mailloux, Barron, and Engstrom. I think the 9th player is definitely going to be up and down between the minors and the majors, depending on injury. So I think Mailloux showed enough based on what I've seen to make this hockey team. He looked pretty impressive, playing in most of the games that I've seen. And I haven't seen much of Engstrom. I think probably he's going to be the odd man out. I don't know what his waiver situation is.
Yeah. I mean, the waiver situation, just so you're aware, is Mailloux and Engstrom, obviously, could be waived, as well as Struble, believe it or not. So Barron can't be waived this year. So if you put him down in the minors, he's could get picked up by another team. That's probably not going to happen. So the Canadians are probably going to keep him. I agree. I agree with you on the Engstrom. I mean, Engstrom, it looked good. He's made a couple of mistakes, but he wasn't slated to make this team this year. He's played in the big ice in Europe for years. I think they want him to have a year of, learning how to play in the NHL rinks and the NHL ice surface. It's different as a defenseman. So I agree with you on that. I'm not as high as you are on Mailloux. He had an all-star season last year. He scores goals. He hasn't impressed me in the preseason. However, he did have one good game, the game that they lost, Jack Eye and Brian Bucker. He played played 25 minutes or something like that. And I thought he looked good that game. So I don't disagree with anything you're saying, other than I wouldn't be surprised if Montreal kept 7 defensemen. So they would send you and Engstrom back.
Let's see. Let's see.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. All right.
But
We're so far mostly in agreement. So let's talk forwards. As you know, Laine gets hurt. He's not going to be back before Christmas, or at the earliest, and maybe in the new year, hopefully. I mean, and then and that's a big loss. So you're looking to replace a top 6 forward. Personally, if you've been listening to the show, I'm a huge fan of Roy, and so Joshua Roy was currently slated in the 3rd line, but I think he might get a shot to go up to the 2nd line. But then there's Kapanen. Kapanen's a center. So is Doc. They could fight for, one could play wing and one could play center. I agree with some of the things you're saying. Where do you think? I mean, there's that guy. Emil Henneman has had a great camp, and Alex Barry-Boulet can fit in on the bottom 6, and you can have people go up. So I guess what are you thinking out of those guys?
So okay. So if we keep 8 defensemen and 2 forwards, that means that
you'd only have one extra forward.
Sorry, 2 goalies.
Yeah.
And 8 defensemen. That means we have
13.
13 spots, right?
Yeah. So 4 lines and an extra player.
Right. So I think the first line for sure is locked in, at least to start the season. And Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky.
Yep.
So okay, so we got the first line. Now the second line, I think Doc is solidified. I'm super excited about Doc being the second center. And it would have been exciting to have Patrick Lane, on the wing with him. But I think Josh Roy comes up and plays with Doc, at least to start on the right wing.
Mhm.
And then, like, I know you're not going to like this. I mean, I think it could be Josh Anderson that, that fills in and gets a shot. I know you're not too fond of JA, but I think that line with JA, like punching and muscling in the corners and digging the puck out, for that line could be fruitful. So, and listen, I would love to play Kapanen on that line, but he's a center. So,
Mhm.
thoughts?
I totally disagree with you on the Josh Anderson, as you're aware. If you watch the last game, the Canadians are testing Kapanen out on the wing. I don't think Kapanen's
Oh, okay.
I don't think Kapanen's going to make this team if he's not playing on the wing. I'll tell you why. You have Suzuki, you have Doc, you have Dvorak, who has a lot of talent. He just doesn't have anything elite. He's just good at everything. And then you have Evans, who's just a solid plug-in fourth center. So because of
Okay.
that, if you're going to keep Kapanen, he has to play on the wing. So he can play on the wing in the second line or the third line, but he's going to play on the wing. He's not a fourth line player. If he ends up being on the fourth line, they'll send him to Sweden to play. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So, so I don't disagree with you on Roy. We can talk. Probably we need a separate show about Josh Anderson, I think, to be honest. But Josh Anderson, Josh Anderson has degraded for the last 2 or 3 years. If he comes back to where he was in 2020, 2021, I would not disagree with you. But yeah, and giving him a shot on the middle six, where he belongs, is fair. I just don't think I would start there. I mean, I've already seen Wa and Armia have better chemistry than Anderson.
Okay.
Personally, though,
I'm not in disagreement with that.
yeah,
So, okay,
yeah.
so we agree with Cole, Caulfield, Suzuki,
Yeah,
Slafkovsky.
that's no one's
Doc
touching
for
that one.
sure. We
Yeah,
agree on the
yeah,
center of the
yeah.
second line.
You're
I
leaving
think we
Newhook
also,
out. You left Newhook out. So I mean, that's another player who's a center who's playing wing. So I'm curious where you think Newhook fits.
yeah, I'm not fond of New Hook right now.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
he's been a disappointment for me.
Okay, okay.
So I think I actually like, if given that they have tested, you're right, they have tested Kapanen on the wing. Having Kapanen play with Doc and Roy, that's pretty exciting. I mean, they may even, like, who knows, outperform the first line from a scoring perspective, because that's a talented scoring line, from that perspective.
Yeah,
And then New Hook.
there's a lot of people. I don't disagree. One of the things, to your point of talking about Josh Anderson, who's going to go get that puck? I mean, Doc goes and gets the puck a lot, but like, you don't you kind of have three possession players, skilled players that aren't like hard forward checking, like heavy, intense forward people. Although Doc does play that part. I actually think that's the right line, but we have to see how it fits, right? And then I think there's going to be a rotation. I don't think the second line and third line is going to be rotated. And I think I agree with you on Newhook. I don't think Newhook has looked great in that line. I think he fits better on a third line, in my opinion. But yeah, I agree. So we have
There could be another option. So I'm going to throw this one at you. So, Alex Barré-Boulet makes the team.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I think he could sneak on this team. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they put him with Doc and with Kapanen, because there was some chemistry between Kapanen and Boulet. Right. And with Doc, and then you slip Roy down to play with Dvorak or Evans, with Newhook, or with Josh Anderson. So
yeah,
yeah.
I think there's less chance of him playing with Doc. I think there's more chance of him playing with Roy. I agree. I agree there. Sorry, with Kapanen. So if you have Kapanen and Alex Barré-Boulet on, let's say, the third or fourth line, okay, because you remember, we still have Gallagher, we still have Evans, we still have Armia, we still have Pizzetta. You have a bunch of players that are still trying to make this team, right? So the question really is, from my perspective, I don't agree with you on Alex Barré-Boulet. I think he's good. I think he's going to be a fourth line player if he makes this team initially. I don't think he's going to get put on a second line. I just don't see it happening. But again,
right.
That's my take on that one. Okay. So your first comment was Josh Anderson and Roy. that's what you'd
No,
like.
Josh Anderson with Doc and Raw. Yeah,
That's
that
what
was
I
my
meant.
first pick.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
we've already established that Doc's the second line center. So that's what I meant.
100%.
We know
100.
Doc is going to be the second line center. There's no one else that's going to play that position, tapping on wood. Unless there's injuries. So the issue is really who's going to play with them. There's there's Kapanen, there's Newhook, there's Josh Anderson, there's Armia. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be all of the above, to be honest. I think the Montreal Canadiens are going, personally, I think Montreal Canadiens are going to keep Kapanen and Pizzetta. Okay. And that's going to be, and they're going to keep 8 defensemen, or they'll go 7 defensemen and they'll keep Alex Barré-Boulet.
So who do you think they're cutting then?
Emil Henneman. And,
Okay. Agreed.
So Emil Henneman, I think, is gonna get sent down to the minors. I think unless they do something about trading any of the veteran players, which could happen still, if the team that's out there trying out right now, my opinion is that Kapanen makes the team, and Pizzetta stays on the team. He'll probably be in the stands a lot, but he'll play a few games here and there. And then you have basically a fight between Alex Barré-Boulet and Mailloux, believe it or not. So they'll want to make a decision. Do they need to carry 14 forwards and 7 defensemen, or 13 forwards and 8 defensemen? And that's kind of,
that would mean if they carry, what did we say? 13. I think if they carry the 8 defensemen, it's going to be 13 forwards, right?
then they have to cut 2 of those forwards that we mentioned.
Right. So Heineman for sure. And then there's maybe
Alex Barré-Boulet.
Yeah,
there's Boulet.
They're not cutting Pizzetta because they need the muscle.
Or with Kapanen, they don't believe Kapanen could play.
Kapanen's not getting cut. Kapanen's. I don't believe Kapanen.
I don't want him to get cut, but I think it depends. It depends on if I honestly believe it'll depend on how he plays the last couple of games. But the other thing they could do, right, is they can send Alex Barré-Boulet and Emil Henneman to Laval, keep Kapanen for up to 9 games in the NHL, and still move them to Sweden after that if he's not executing the way we planned. All right.
Right.
So I mean, yeah.
There's another possibility, which is it's very possible that there could be an injury. I don't like talking about it, but there's still another preseason game. Somebody gets hurt. And then suddenly then we have our answer. So, I mean, we agree that Henneman is going down. I don't think he's unseating Josh Anderson. They're a similar type of player. I think I know you don't agree, and we can talk about this in a future, episode, but Josh Anderson, I think, is going to have a rebound season, and there's too much upside.
Yeah. I mean, I hope he has a rebound season. I'm not saying I don't think a rebound season doesn't have to take a lot, in my opinion. I mean, I think you agree that was a disaster year for him last year. I mean, everyone agrees that. Yeah. The question really is what is.
I think even he would agree.
Yeah,
I think he's not shy about saying that he sucked last year.
Yeah. So, but again, where I think you and I differ is on the ceiling. Like, I don't think his ceiling was anywhere close to where you think his ceiling was. And that's the question that remains, right? Is Josh Anderson's good moving forward good enough to be on the Montreal Canadiens moving forward? And that's the question. Like, he's if you listen to my past episodes, he's going to be an important player for somebody in the playoffs. He's a kind of player that is difficult to play against in a 7-game series.
And are we trying to make the playoffs this year?
The Canadiens are trying to make the playoffs. And so I'm not telling you cut Josh Anderson, but if you remember when the Canadiens made the Stanley Cup, their 4th line was Perry and Stahl and Armia, and that line was a pain in the ass to work with, and that was a 4th line. It doesn't mean Josh Anderson needs to be on the 2nd line for him to be an effective player on this team. I just think the days of him scoring 25 goals in the NHL, 22 goals in the NHL I'd love to see it, but I don't see it anymore. And the other thing I don't see, if the other thing that has always frustrated me about Josh Anderson, which we've talked about many a time, is the fact that he is very inconsistent. His good games are good. His good games are annoyingly good. When he plays a good game, you look at him, go, why is he not doing this more often? Like, Suzuki has bad games. Everyone has bad games, but their bad games aren't as bad and they're not as often. And that's the thing that's frustrating. If you look at the years that Josh Anderson was good, and hasn't been for a couple, at least a year and a half, the years he was good, if you want to call it that, he scored 2 goals a game often, and he would score 7 goals in 10 games, and then he would disappear for 20. And that's the problem, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, we're really getting into Josh Anderson, and I'll just, conclude it with this, and we can just carry this on for a future episode because I'm excited about it to prove you wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
I think that the anomaly last year, Josh Anderson, as bad as he was last year, he still generated chances.
Right.
He still makes chances. As a coach and as a fan, I want to see breakaways. I want to see a streaking Josh Anderson come in on the goalie. The anomaly was he only scored on 5 or 6% of his shots on net. He still got the shots on net. There are some players that don't generate any offense. They don't generate any chances. So just keep that in mind. That is just an important thing. It's just a matter, I think it's just an anomaly, that the puck didn't go in the net and it was just bad luck. Let's see how it all turns out this year.
All right. I'm not going to go into, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I really don't. What I will say though, is I'm looking at stats as we're talking, just to kind of back it up, right? A 6.4 shooting percentage down from 12.5 and 13.6.
There you go.
But where it's really, really blatant, and I this is the part that he has to fix, I think, even more than that, is he had 277 shot attempts. He missed the net 136 times. He and the 37.1% of his shots that were not blocked missed the net. And then an average NHLer is 20 to 25. He's 10% higher, and that number has increased every year in the last 4 years. I agree, listen, he does things to get in front of net, but again, he's got to learn how to hit the net or put the puck in the net, and again, he's never been great at that. He's never had a high shooting percentage. That's not his skill. And then we're not talking about Josh Henderson as the goal scorer. I know what he brings to the table is more than goals and assists, but you can't have a guy that played on power play 1 for half a year and the first line for almost half the year get 9 goals on 277 shots. That's what it was. He took 277 shots. So his 6% shooting percentage was really 2%.
Yeah.
Just understand that.
Listen, I'm not going to disagree with you.
Cool.
I think that point is very well taken, and let's see what happens this season.
Well, Stephen, thanks very much for joining the next shift. It was great to have you. I do appreciate your opinion, and I didn't disagree with most of the things you're saying. I mean, other than having Josh Anderson on the second line, we were pretty close. So we'll see. He pronounces his name Lane Hutson, not Hootson, but that's okay. We forgive you for that. But other than that, we're good. So, Steve, all right, I really appreciate you having on the show. And remember, Suzuki does not suck. Next shift, maybe we'll have you back pretty soon, and let's hope let's hope Josh Anderson kicks butt and Kapanen makes the team and does great. So appreciate you having on.
All right.
Thank
you very much for having me, and go Habs.
Go Habs. Thanks, guys. Bye.